faithfully delivering value by interpreting the world's great books. Hi there, this is Sally with the Book Talk. Today we're diving into this book, Immensee, by German author Theodor Storm. Oh, our great poet Du Fu has a poem called To Wei the Eighth Hermit that goes, "Who knew after 20 years I'd be back at your hall? When we parted, you weren't married, and now suddenly your kids are all around." This poem means Du Fu revisited his pal after 20 years. Back when they said goodbye, the guy was single, but now he's got a house full of kiddos. This poem's all about how life changes, and it's got a lot in common with Immensee we're covering today. Immensee also sings about time flying by amidst all the ups and downs, whether it's old friends' vibes and status or the author's feelings for him. It's totally different from back in the day. Reality and memories clash, making you feel all kinds of ways. This emotional connection is why Immensee became a masterpiece that's touched so many hearts. After it was published in 1849, the novel was super popular, kept getting reprinted, and by the late 1800s, it had nearly 60 editions. Gotta say, in 19th century German literature, no other story's sales and fame could top Immensee. Its charm won over the whole world. In China, back in 1921, Guo Morello's translation of Immensee sparked huge buzz among readers. And over in America at the time, Immensee had at least 20 different translations. Among imported works in America then, Immensee was #1 in sales and popularity. This novella starts with a flashback. It opens with a man in his 60s taking a stroll, coming home, sitting alone by the window, seeing moonlight hit a portrait on the wall, and memories just flood in. Then we rewind to the old man's childhood. Turns out his name's Reinhard, and he's got a childhood friend named Elisabeth. They grew up together, inseparable, whether heading to school, coming back, or just playing around. The author then paints, scenes of them having fun, like when they built a little hut with turf, planning to spend summer evenings there. Reinhard got right to it, putting up a bench. Elisabeth, outside defense, gathered wild mallow seeds she found and put them in her apron pocket, figuring she'd make necklaces and collars for herself. Once Reinhard finished the bench, he called Elisabeth back, and they sat down together, their chat brimming with happy daydreams. Oh, Reinhard was talking about how he'd go to India to see lions someday. He'd heard Indians drive lions to pull their carts across the desert. It's gorgeous there, and winters aren't as cold as back home. He asked Elisabeth, "Would you want to come along?" Elisabeth said, "Yeah," but Reinhard teased her, "You wouldn't go. You're too chicken." Just like that, the two kiddos were laughing and messing around. Later, they went on a strawberry picking trip in the woods. This was their last childhood adventure together. While walking, they got lost, didn't find any strawberries, and ended up sitting under a tree together. The boy gazed at the girl, who was soaking up the birdsong and bug noises, basking in the sun. By the time they got out, the other kids had gathered, all with their strawberries. And Menhard flipped his hat over and unfolded his handkerchief, both empty. The teacher asked, "What'd you guys pick?" Reinhard and Elisabeth winked at each other, then yelled, "We're starving and parched!" Uh, Nothing could capture childhood's magic. They didn't care about what they got. Just being together made even hunger a blast. Reinhard was super artsy, loving to lose himself in the romantic vibes of fields, forests, and poems. Back home, Reinhard penned a poem likening Elisabeth to a woodland queen with golden eyes. But the sweeter childhood was, the more it highlights how sad growing up is and how tough adult life gets. The good times ended fast. Reinhard started at an all-boys school, only seeing Elisabeth after classes. Then he went to college in another town, and they rarely met. As they said goodbye, Reinhard promised, "I'm going to copy fairy tales and mail them to you. When you get them, shoot me a letter with your thoughts. Meanwhile, he secretly wrote a bunch of poems for Elizabeth, saving them for when they'd reunite someday. But once he got to college, the distance and time apart made their bond fade, no avoiding it. On his first college Christmas, Reinhard went to a bar with buddies. It was dead empty, just a gypsy singer and a fiddle player performing. Reinhard was totally bored. Oh, this scene stands in stark contrast to the strawberry picking in the forest. Those two kids just sat side by side, doing nothing, feeling how beautiful the moment was. Even with nothing gained, they were filled with pure joy. Yet the college students' Christmas gathering was so lonely. The gypsy singer was gorgeous, her voice lovely, but her eyes were icy cold. A student tried to pay for a song request but got turned down. The kid's innocent world and the adult's world full of wariness, arrogance, and jealousy create a heart-piercing contrast. Later, Reinhard offered the gypsy woman a drink. Only then did she sing, and the lyrics were bleak and desolate. Today, only today, I'm this beautiful. Tomorrow, tomorrow, everything will be past. Only at this moment do you belong to me, death. Death will make me leave all alone. The song left Reinhard lost in deep thought. In just a year, that naive, carefree, youthful spirit seemed to vanish into thin air. On that Christmas, Reinhard also got a letter from Elisabeth. From this letter, we found out a few things. First, Reinhard broke his promise and didn't keep writing to Elisabeth. Second, the plum blossom Reinhard gave Elisabeth had died. Third, Reinhard's old classmate Eric often visited Elisabeth and even painted her portrait. Logically, Reinhard should have felt anxious or ashamed after reading it, but he didn't. He was just gloomy and felt homesick. Then he went downstairs and, like a grown-up, gave some cakes to a poor little girl to send her home. After that, he went back to his room to write replies to Elisabeth and his mom. Overwhelmed by homesickness, he wrote all night long. When Reinhard returned home for Easter for the first time, he finally saw Elisabeth again. He still took her to the fields where they gathered plants and made specimens together. But they weren't chatting freely like before. There were often awkward silences. Then he unexpectedly found that after the finch he gave Elisabeth died, a canary appeared in her birdcage. Turns out Eric had given it to her. Eric's family was super wealthy. He'd just taken over an estate by Immensee Lake, and even Elisabeth's mom raved about him. Reinhard felt really bitter inside. He realized Eric had overtaken him. He told Elisabeth he couldn't stand that canary, but she didn't respond at all. But when Reinhard opened his notebook and pulled out a lily of the valley for Elisabeth, she spotted the poem inside, so he showed it to her. Elisabeth read the poem, blushed, and handed the notebook back to Reinhard. Then she took a brown heather flower from an iron box and gave it to Reinhard in return. Back in the day, even with nothing to do, they'd hang out happily. Now, if there's nothing to chat about, it just feels empty. They feel awkward again. That old spark between them is gone. Reinhard giving Lilies of the Valley this artsy cute move was totally overshadowed by Eric inheriting that big estate. Later, Elisabeth admitted her mom pushed her toward Eric, and she casually mentioned the canary from him, not caring about the pain on Reinhard's face. Reinhard wanted to fix things but had no clue how to save their relationship. Only when they were saying goodbye on the last day did he tell her, "Trust me, we can be like we used to be." Reinhard knew he had to say something to Elisabeth about their happiness, but he couldn't find the words to share his heart. Finally, he just said, "I've got a secret I can't tell till I graduate in 2 years, so hang tight." But Elisabeth was clearly over this kind of romantic nonsense. She just shook her head and said, "Goodbye." Hearts change quick. This chilly, rushed goodbye was such a sad contrast to those big promises before college. After Reinhard went back to school, for 2 whole years, he never wrote Elisabeth a letter. As graduation neared, Her mom wrote saying, Eric and Elizabeth were getting married by Immensee Lake. Years later, Reinhard had grown up into a fine young man. One day, he got an invite letter from Eric, so he headed off to Immensee Lake to visit him, soaking in the views along the way. He saw the ancient oak tree, the calm blue lake, the lush woods in the sun, the far-off green hills, all described beautifully in the book. Across the lake, in the greenery, a snowy white spot. That's flowering fruit trees. Behind them, on the high bank, stood the estate villa, white walls, red roof tiles. The strange bird flew off the chimney, lazily circling above the water. Oh, seeing this scene, Reinhard couldn't help but shout, Immensee Lake! No doubt, this heartfelt cry was Reinhard's lament for the old times he couldn't hold on to. The scenery is beautiful and peaceful, but it's not the wild nature where young boys and girls could freely roam. It's the outskirts of an estate, private property now. Then, Eric came out to greet Reinhardt and showed him around the estate's houses, farmlands, and winery. Eric is the estate owner and winery manager. He gave instructions to the workers on the estate. Everything was in perfect order. Elizabeth was very surprised to see Reinhard because she didn't know he was coming. After Eric explained the situation, Elizabeth couldn't help but say to her husband, You're so kind. The two showed off their affection. The book never mentioned Reinhard's feelings then, but we can all sense his loneliness. Reinhard stayed here for a while. Every dusk, he'd walk by Immensee Lake, and he brought his work here too, collecting folk songs. One day, he sat with Eric's family and started sharing his work findings. He sang songs one after another, and sometimes Elizabeth joined in. As dusk fell, Reinhard sang another folk song. The lyrics were a girl's confession. The girl said she followed her mother's wish, married a man she didn't love, and had to cut ties with her old love. After that, she couldn't shake off the regret inside, wishing she could just wander alone. After hearing this song, Elizabeth walked out. Reinhard followed later, walked to the lake, saw a water lily from afar, and stripped to swim towards it. She swam for a long time, finally reached the water lily, but it was dark, so he didn't dare stay long and swam back. When Eric found out, he asked impatiently, Why did you go after that flower? Reinhard replied, I knew it once, but that was a long time ago. Actually, what Reinhard meant was that the love he thought was within reach was actually far away. The next day, Eric and his mother went out, so Reinhard finally got a chance to be alone with Elisabeth. They took a walk, rowed a boat, and Reinhard gazed at Elisabeth like in childhood, admiring her beauty. But Elizabeth wasn't as carefree as before. She avoided meeting Reinhard's eyes. When Reinhard looked at her hand, Elizabeth slipped it into the water. Elizabeth also kept dodging topics that might stir up old dreams. Reinhard said, How about we pick strawberries together? But Elizabeth replied, It's not strawberry season now. Oh, but when Reinhard mentioned the heather flower she'd given him in his notebook, Elizabeth couldn't hold back tears, her eyes welling up. Reinhard asked, Behind those green hills lies our youth, but where is it now? Then they walked back in silence. At the estate's entrance, they met a gypsy beggar. Elizabeth hastily gave him all her money and ran upstairs crying. As for Reinhard, he stood silently downstairs a while. Seeing the beggar still there, he asked, What else do you want? The beggar jumped in fright, stammering, I want nothing else, then slowly walked away. Reinhard's question, What else do you want? Carried an almost accusing tone. Time and reality had stolen Reinhard's love, and the beggar mirrored his own state, destitute, begging childhood's scattered coins from irreversible past. He remembered the gypsy singer in the bar, who'd sworn an oath through song. His fate declared, You've stepped onto adulthood's bleak path. You'll leave disappointment behind and race toward death. Indeed, Reinhard was now fully lost in adulthood's confused, sorrowful state. Reinhard returned alone to the lake, retracing every path he and Elizabeth walked before going back to his room. He lay awake all night. At dawn, Elizabeth came down, placed her hand on his arm, and said, "I know you'll never return." Reinhard admitted, "Never again," and he prepared to leave. Before going, he stepped toward Elizabeth, almost reaching to embrace her, but finally turned sharply and walked out. He refused to create another farewell, knowing it'd trap him in perpetual loss's shadow, forever tripped by memory. The book writes, Reinhard didn't look back. Before him stretched a vast world. However, we know he endured that heart-wounding pain because those beautiful memories were ripped right off him. But seriously, how can memories ever just vanish? At the novel's end, the flashback wraps up and Reinhard snaps back to reality. Deep in the night, this lonely 60-year-old man sits in his armchair, staring at the lake, feeling that hazy gloom turn into a vast, dark lake. Waves surging forward one after another, getting farther and deeper. On the last wave, a lone white water lily floats. He gazes at it, so close yet out of reach, like he's using the love memories he holds dear to fight that river of time. All right, story told. To sum up Immensee in one line, it's about a boy and girl, childhood sweethearts. Later, the girl married someone else, the guy never wed, lived in pain and regret till old age, feeling time's unstoppable flow and youth slipping away. In the tale, the girl gave in to her mom's matchmaking, ditching her childhood buddy to marry a rich kid. This might even remind Chinese readers of the Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yintai story, which slams those outdated customs like arranged marriages. On the flip side, since the book came out, tons of readers have argued, why did Reinhard love so hard, but Elisabeth never showed it in action? Why didn't he fight to win her back? Seems like he should own up to his lifelong regret. These debates go on forever. But honestly, blaming the girl's mom or the hero doesn't help us feel the novel's artistic magic. The big reason Immensee touches readers across generations, it nails time's cruelty and human helplessness. Reinhard was super sensitive to time. The years passing, childhood fading, old pals leaving, all that made him lonely. He got used to tasting that sadness solo, soaking in nostalgia for how things change and time marches on. He silently watched time slip by, meditating alone with quiet seriousness, writing poems by himself. He didn't battle others or fight Eric for his love. Instead, he just clung tight to memories of the past. He and his memories fell into time's long river, like that water lily bobbing up and down, swept farther away by the current. If Reinhard had anything to hate, it wasn't people. It was time. Oh, time. It was time that changed hearts, made him lose his love, left him lonely all his life. This hatred couldn't change reality, but it deepened his poetic nature. He turned to Germany's age-old folk songs and found some comforting echoes in them. In the book, Reinhard visits Immensee Lake and shares with Eric's family. While collecting folk songs, Elisabeth asked, "Who actually created these lovely songs?" Eric dismissed it, saying, "These songs must have been made by tailors, shop clerks, barbers. Those frivolous folks wrote them while goofing off." Reinhard corrected him seriously. "No, these songs grew. They fell from the sky. Whoever hears them just sings along. We find our own experiences and pain in these songs, like we all helped write them together." Tim, these words are the novel's soul. We're helpless against loss, but everyone suffers painful losses in life. People pour loss into poems, pass them down. They become a culture's most moving legacy. That sense of loss gets lifted into something noble. Now, by quiet Immensee Lake, this place stands for love and broken dreams. Its scenery witnessed pain and helplessness. Reinhard collected sorrowful songs in sorrow, singing them to join centuries of heartbroken souls, blending into Germany's rich history. This mood the novel paints pure German romanticism. In the 17th to 18th centuries, Germany was fragmented into tiny states. Politically backward, weak, constantly invaded, so building national unity became urgent. So romantic writers explored Germany's landscapes and plants, gathered folkwit, reworked it, all to boost national pride and honor local culture. Romantics loved writing loss, betrayal, melancholy, how beautiful dreams shadow against reality. With tragic tales like Goethe's The Sorrows of Young Werther, they crafted a unique aesthetic. Oh, Immensee was born right under German Romanticism's influence. Reinhard collecting plant specimens, gathering folk tales and songs, writing poems, even the novel's poetic style itself, all scream Romanticism. In the novel, Reinhard's melancholic, introverted, full of sorrow, helplessness, frustration. It just never ends. Yet, this writing soaked in loneliness and grief hits readers hard. Thomas Mann, Germany's big writer, 1929 Nobel winner, once said he'd known Reinhardt's poetic image since childhood. That image and identity grew with him, making him sure he was German, belonged to Deutschland. Let's look at Theodor Storm, Immensee's author. He wrote 50-plus novellas, all like Immensee, showing characters' tragic fates against time. Storm truly knew loss and helplessness deep down. He was born in 1817 with 5 siblings. Immensee got done in 1849. When he was 32, his 3 sisters had all died from illness, one after another. Meanwhile, Danish troops were attacking and occupying his hometown. For joining anti-Danish uprisings, he was forced out in 1853, moved to Potsdam, didn't return till 1865. Storm loved his hometown, but family even more. He once said family life was the holiest, deepest wellspring in his soul. At 29, he married his cousin Constanze. Their bond was deep at first, but later faded. Like Reinhard in the book, he didn't fight to save things, just sank into sadness, lamenting time's cruelty. In 1864, Constanze died. Storm married another woman who'd long adored him. But out of longing and guilt for Constance, Storm poured his heart into raising their children together, right till he died. When writing, he desperately longed to reverse time's flow and to keep loved ones alive, hometowns eternal. Immensee's romantic spirit, gorgeous prose, poetic vibe won endless praise. In 1946, Nobel winner Hermann Hesse recalled loving Storm since age 20. By age 40, that love had doubled. After Immensee was translated into Chinese, it deeply influenced many Chinese literati. Gaojin once said, "I adore Storm's writing. For fragile hearts, his words and pure emotions might offer some comfort. Young love's flame extinguishes. Time ruthlessly pushes us toward age, while memories struggle in time's flowing river. This profound sorrow crosses national and cultural borders, moving readers everywhere." Reinhard left Immensee Lake, never looking back, and we recall Dufu's verse once more. Tomorrow, mountains will part us. The world's affairs grow dim and distant. All right, that concludes our interpretation of Theodor Storm's Immensee. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.